Welcome to Beyond Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Petrellis, and we are excited for today's guest. We've been really covering a lot of football this year. We've been at 3 or 4 high school football games already. We're going to be at another one this weekend in Malden. And football is just in the fall. It's just such an amazing feeling, amazing few months, good atmosphere as high school football starts going on and getting into the bigger weeks. You're going to have some huge matchups, some big crowds, and it's a lot of fun. And I've gotten a lot of good words about this past guest. I actually met him on Saturday. I covered a game for his opponent. So it was the first time that I got to meet him in person. Super guy, real nice guy. Has coached at, had been the head coach before at Matignon High School as well as Lexington High School. So has a lot of experience in the game of football and just taking over this year for the first time, first year coach at Georgetown football. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Hill.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited for the conversation we're going to have today.
Yeah, so it was great. I got to meet you the other day, as you said, and we talked, and COVID is still striking football, and talking to you, I know you have some kids that are out COVID, a few kids that were out injured, so coming into a season, it's tough when you're losing some experienced players. So, but it was great. Your team fought really hard. You moved the ball offensively, up the middle a lot. So some good stuff to see for sure. But before we jump into it, I love to give guests that coach multiple sports. And I know we're here going to talk a lot about football today, but you are also a baseball guy. And just for people to understand, football season has really turned into a spring, summer, and even fall sport, with the winter kids playing other sports or in the weight room, as is the spring, but there's more outdoor stuff, 7-on-7, things going on like that in the spring. And you got baseball, and baseball is a summer sport, and baseball is a fall sport too. So obviously, there's a lot that you have balanced for a really long time. And I just want to give you that shout out because we are going to focus on a lot of football today. But you also put the grind in as a baseball coach as well, and you've been doing that for a really long time. So I just want to give you your praise there because I think people should understand being a head coach of one sport is hard, specifically football. But go into another sport, another season, a whole new group of kids, and different way of your program. It's not easy to balance. So as I said, coach, I just want to give you that shout out.
Yeah, I mean, obviously growing up, I played multiple sports. I was a, football player in high school, baseball player in high school. I also did track. I used to coach track. I'll be dead honest with you. Uh, I did track to keep in shape for baseball and for football.
I get it.
So Matignon found themselves in a position where we needed a track coach, and I did that for a couple of years. It's probably for the best that I no longer coach track, but I also coach mock trial as well in the winter. So it's a really busy schedule. For anyone that's interested in doing that, it really just comes down to you really need to make sure you're very, very organized in what you're doing. You really need to plan ahead. You need to know where everything's going to be, and that is the only way it can really work is if you really want to put that work in, because it's an amazing experience to do it, but it's also it's an incredibly difficult thing in the sense that you need to be on top of everything.
Yeah. And it's how you live your life, right? Like I found sometimes coaching really helped me balance life of organization and scheduling and knowing how much time I have to do certain things and obviously balancing your job and balancing everything else in your life. So no, absolutely you deserve that praise. And I just wanted to give it to you. So I'm going to ask you this question because I've asked every football coach that I've had on this fall this question, and every time they've answered it so differently. We heard that there was helmet shortages going on and equipment shortages going on at Georgetown. What has been your experience with that? Things that have just I can't believe it's not in yet. We don't have enough of this. We don't have enough of that.
Yeah, so there's definitely a helmet shortage. That's no joke and no lie. It was amazing at the league meeting. We're all in the CAC, and every single team's asking for helmets. Even us. We're a smaller group. We're at about 27 at this point, and I actually have a North Reading helmet right here because we need to borrow from them. And I appreciate the schools that are handing them out when they can. But it's a legitimate shortage. We were doing a lot of scrambling, trying to find it. We had kids for the first couple of days who were practicing without helmets. And as a coach, you always feel bad because you know that you're not providing them the experience that they really deserve. Because we're asking these kids to do exactly the same stuff that the kids with helmets have.
Right.
They're not doing any less sprints. They're not doing any less work, but they're not even getting helmets.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the way things go, it's usually the younger kids who are not getting the helmets. You feel awful because you're not providing them that experience. Because really, what it comes down to is football is an experience that the kids get to have, and you're not giving it to them, and you realize that you're failing these kids, and there's really just no way around that, because it's just not something we can manufacture. We're just waiting for Rydell to get on their stuff.
Now, would you say a lot of it obviously has to do with supply and chain, but like some coaches suggested that maybe the numbers in high school football have been going up, that a part of that shortages is that the numbers up are across the state, and obviously the more ordering of helmets, programs need more helmets than they usually do. Do you feel like numbers are up, or I mean, what's your thought on that?
I mean, it's tough to tell if you don't have access to the data,
Hmm.
but I would say I could believe it. I could believe it. I mean, we're up a couple from last year. It's a small school, so we're never going to be that 70, 80 person program, but we're up, 4 or 5 kids from last year. I know that, the Matignon Cathedral team's up a good amount from last year. I know Neshoba seems to be up a good amount
Yeah,
from
they're like
last year.
70, 75 kids in their program. I mean, it's no joke.
Yeah, I was looking over. It was almost funny watching the film from our BLA versus us game, where it looks like they had about 60 on the sideline, and we're having about 11, 12. But they have good numbers. There's a lot of programs out there that I do see with some pretty good numbers. So it would not shock me if the numbers did dictate that the participation's up. I can
Yeah.
definitely see that being possible. I can't speak for sure, but I could definitely see that being true.
Yeah, it's interesting. A couple coaches said that. I didn't even think of it that way, and I was like, "Oh, you're right." I talked to Coach Rabbit at Kip. He kind of said the same thing. And his AD Anthony Grimaldi, so was kind of suggesting that as well. So just an interesting take from it too, to be like, "Wow, the numbers have gone up for a sport that maybe over the last few years has kind of taken a beating as far as the safety of it and concussions and CTE and everything else that is kind of coming out in studies." But one interesting thing too, and Matt Noon and Noontime Sport tried really putting us together an email that had us in an email chain as well as a text chain, I believe. And you and I have been able to communicate throughout the season. One real thing that I noticed about you is that you have a pretty active Twitter account. You seem pretty up to date with it as far as the spring went, the summer went, workout sessions, things like that. But one thing that really caught my eye about your social media, it was like a scrimmage. It might have been one of your first scrimmages or second scrimmages, but the other team broke a big play on you up the sideline. And most coaches wouldn't want to post that on their social media, but you posted it on there because you had a player who came across the other side of the field who took a really good angle and made a play and prevented the guy from scoring. Now, in football, as we know as coaches, that could be the difference between someone scoring points or getting stopped on 4 downs this next series, or hold them to a field goal. Those points can matter in a game. So seeing people do that, I thought that was really cool in your social media to show that and to maybe highlight that kid in a different way that you wouldn't see other social media pages do that.
Yeah, something that always frustrates me is, you see a lot of teams will post up all the good things, and and that's not a bad thing necessarily to post good things, but I think that you can find a lot out about your team when things aren't necessarily going the way you want. You can find out a lot about that. Um, it's just that intestinal fortitude that you would need in order to perform at a high level on a consistent basis. Because one of the things I saw there was I had a senior captain in a in the second quarter of a first scrimmage. This kid has played a lot of football. He's going to play lacrosse at St. Michael's. He's a top level athlete, and this kid's selling himself out in a scrimmage. And to me, I look at that as one of the things we're preaching all the time at Georgetown right now is pride in the school, pride in your community, pride in your team. And to me, that just screams exactly what we're preaching. And when kids are buying into that aspect of what you're teaching, I think it needs to be rewarded in a lot of ways. And I think it also is important for a lot of people to see is that even when things aren't going the way you want, it doesn't mean you have to lay down and just accept it. You can go and try to change it, because in the end, they did score late on a couple of plays later, but we gave ourselves an opportunity to make a play. I was taught a great philosophy when I was working at Belmont under Coach Q, where he was selling big play, next play. If you let up an 80-yard run, no one cares if you get an interception on the next play.
I like
They're going to be
that. Yeah.
talking about that interception. And that's a philosophy, we're really trying to bring to Georgetown as well, is that, okay, one play goes wrong, it doesn't mean we need to make the next play go wrong. The next play needs to be good. And we just got to take the bad parts out. And I thought it was just important to highlight the effort that kid's giving, because, it's always nice to have big time players who can make big time plays. And we have a couple of those. But what it really comes down to is showing big time effort, I think really does a lot to show what these kids are all about. Because I don't know if people outside the coaching really understand the effort that these kids put in on a day in and day out basis.
Yeah, it's that, the time management ultimately, that's something you're teaching them in life because it's school, getting out of school, having practice, having responsibilities of doing homework, trying to communicate with your family, eat dinner, like take a shower. Like there's a whole big thing to it as far as what they have to do after practice is over and on top of it, they're putting their body, every day through, physical work and it's not easy to come home and expect it to be a student athlete and sometimes that gets forgotten for sure. So I thought that was something that's really cool. And obviously for us, like when I started this podcast, I didn't have social media. Like the only thing I had was a Twitter account. So technically I did, but not in a way that like I like sports stuff. So that's like why I get Twitter. I was a high school coach and I like following sports and read the Danny V stuff. And like, I enjoy all that type of stuff. But getting Instagram, like probably 6 months into doing this podcast, I've only had Instagram for, under 2 years, actually under a year. And our account is kind of blown up, because putting content out and people seeing what you're doing and the teams that you're covering and the athletes that you're covering and the coaches that you're having on a podcast and the fun little side projects that you're doing on top of it, people take a genuine interest in it, and it's kind of helped us out. So I know for high school sports, being a head coach myself and being a coordinator for a long time and running our social media account on Twitter, it's very powerful to get your program stuff out there, not only showing off the good but also showing off the mental tough aspect of it, like and that play that could have made a stop could have turned into an automatic practice that you get inside the 10 to see how tough your team is when their backs up or against the wall a little bit. Like that's a free sample that you get that you might not be able to simulate in practice because you mentioned numbers, like having lower numbers and so on and so forth. So I think you're doing a great job with it. To me, I was really drawn to it, but that stood out to me. I thought that was really cool. And as a coach, someone that I'd say I'd want to play for, knowing that my coach has my back in that sense as well. And building a staff is obviously super important. And when you're taking over, you've had some experience. As I mentioned, you've been in Matignon, you've been in Lexington, now you're at Georgetown. When you get into these situations, are you kind of looking to certain guys that you're familiar with or that you've coached with before when you're building a staff? Or do you find yourself every place that you've gone, you've kind of had to maybe rebuild it from the ground up?
Yeah, so I think obviously we're human beings. The first group you're going to go to are the people that you have experience with. I just think that's natural. You have
Hmm.
trust that you work with. I mean, you know what it's like being on a staff is that you're with each other for so long. I still talk to so many from my first staff I was on over at Stoneham under Coach Bob Almeida, who is just one of the best all-time football coaches you're ever
Yeah,
going to
former
see.
guest here, great guy,
Yeah,
great guy.
he's just and it's even more, he's even more impressive when you see him in the coach's office. As impressive as his record is, as impressive as people see publicly, it's what you see in the coach's office that really just makes you go in awe of him. But on that staff, we had Coach Q, who ended up being the head coach at Belmont High School for years. Coach Pereira, who is now the head coach at Somerville High School. We had John Davison, who took over for a period as the baseball coach at Stoneham High School and is a great football coach. Brad Jackson, who was a DC at numerous big programs. I think he's at Ashland right now. He is just, we just had an incredible staff. We were all very young. And, the amount of hours we spent with each other, we're still talking to each other on a pretty consistent basis. And, it's one of those things where once you start having those experiences with people, you want to bring them along with you. But my first head coaching position was at a Division 8 school. It was kind of building a newer staff, and I got really lucky with some guys that were great coaches. I had Jimmy Secrekas. He was a linebackers coach at Framingham State. Came down, coached with us at Matignon. I had John Logan, who had been with the team the year before, and he was a teacher at the school. And Nazareth White, who came to me through referral, and that's a group that I pretty much brought with me to Lexington as well. They're great guys, and we were able to do that. In this circumstance, it was a little bit different because it was a little bit later that I got the job. It was like July 15th.
Yeah, I felt like it
Uh,
was much later.
yeah,
Absolutely,
it was
yeah.
it was it was pretty late. And also it's in a different area. There's a big difference between that greater Boston area versus that, top of the North Shore. So, it's a newer staff in that context, but I'm very, very excited about it. We have Nelson Corrett. He's incredible. Played over at Mount Ida. He's been a great guy for us. He's been with us since pretty much my second day. We have Mark Mansfield. He's an alum of Georgetown. He played over at Bridgeton Academy. Unfortunately, some injuries derailed the career, but he's an incredible coach with incredible pride for the town. And Coach Keith Kyle, he's been also fantastic, bringing just a whole lot of energy during practice. So it's been a great ride. It's honestly it's just an awesome place to coach. We had some issues with paperwork at the very beginning where I was down to being the only coach. I had the boys basketball coach and the girls soccer coach come and help coach practice. It was, it's been absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. The kind of people that are over at Georgetown High School. Mr. Browner, Ryan Browner, does an incredible job as the athletic director, and it's just, you always find places that you just really enjoy being, and Georgetown's just one of those places.
That's real cool. It's nice to feel at home and to be able to go somewhere and understand that you have a vision. They obviously interviewed you, heard your vision, agree with your vision, have maybe the same exact vision. So it is really nice to have a supportive town and a supportive place that can help you build a program. We know it's not easy to build a program when you take it over at first. There's a lot of things that are factors that could be going on that you just don't even know about. Coaching change on top of it. You have to convince the older kids that it's still about them. There is a lot that you have to do when you take over a program. It doesn't matter where it is, or it doesn't matter how much experience you have. It's different every single place that you go. So I'll tell you a funny story. So when you were over at Lexington, before you had gotten the coaching job there, I was a head coach in Alton Catholic, and we had a couple of kids from Lexington on our team that were telling me about this kid named Mason Hatfield and how good he was and how dynamic he was. And they sent me his huddle video, and I was like, "Holy smokes!" And I will admit this now because I'm not coaching anymore. I had these kids full court press him, get kids to full court press him, because at the time there was no coach name, there was no one there, and I was doing anything I could to try to get this kid just to take a little tour through Arlington Catholic. But an absolute dynamic player. I know he was a running back. I think he ended up being your quarterback, and smart having that kid with the ball in his hand every single play, and he could do it all. I wanted to give him a plug, but I also wanted to give you an opportunity. I mean, as a coach, there's not a lot of players that come through a program that just are different, and different in a way that they can win you football games. And just watching that kid's film and seeing the things that he could do, that's how I felt. Is that reality? Is this kid as good as I am hyping up to be right now?
He's just a very, very talented individual.
Yeah,
It's so self evident in his film. I mean, the problem was just finding where he specifically fit into that offense for what we had.
yeah,
But the goal was always get Mason the ball,
yeah,
because he could do things that other kids just can't do. He just had that another level that he could reach that it's just very difficult to find. I got a great story about him. I don't think he'd mind me saying this, but I remember one day we were having a lift and it was pouring rain out, just thunder, lightning. It was just, we were all in the dome over at Lexington, and we always got good numbers at lift. We were usually in the 50 to 70 a day range. And one thing that I was really impressed with was he was waiting for his mom to pick him up because he usually rides his bike, and it was just not conditions that was going to happen. And instead of what most kids do is sit around and talk and make jokes, this kid's doing ladder work after a full lift and run. Like he's just he is a different kind of person. I'm very excited to see how he develops, and how and he's going to make Georgetown a very, very happy football program.
yeah, yeah. So again, talking a little bit more about obviously you as a coach. I like asking coaches this because football, like basketball, it's all about scoring, right? And football is the same thing, and it's all about the big plays and the big yardage and everything else. Do you consider yourself an offensive minded football coach, or do you consider yourself a more defensive minded football coach?
Well, I think it'd be fair to say with what I've done in the past is I have more experience in the offensive side of the ball. And this is my first year of truly running a full defense myself. With the younger staff, I kind of took both the play calling on offense and defense. Usually, I was able to be in the more manager role in the defensive aspect and really focused on offense. But I would, I don't know if I would like to necessarily say one or the other. I think my experience would probably be more on the offensive side.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I consider myself a more defensive-minded coach. When I took over the program at Allenton Catholic, it was about making sure that defensively we could make plays, and they had a very big points against average the year before. And as you know, as a coach, some of it has to do with talent, some of it has to do with personnel, and some of it maybe has to do with what you're playing. And one thing we went in is we went in and we really made it a linebacker emphasis. We had some real good linebackers. Our linebacker, middle linebacker that year was just on, huge on U Albany. He plays at U Albany, defensive lineman, scooped and scored like a 70-yard touchdown run and clocked in pretty fast. And it seems to be the big joke going on in their social media. So it was Joe Greeny. And, I kind of built a defense around him. He was really special. I mean, every coach that we went against, the first thing they would say is like, man, 88, we cannot run on 88. And, have someone like that. So the defense was it for me. I'm not ashamed to admit it, but, that might also cost me. We lost some games, but, but overall, it changed the mentality of the team, and we were a tough football team. We were a very tough football team that lost close games that year.
Yeah, and I
Go
guess
ahead.
the way I would respond to that, right, is rather than saying offensive or defensive, is that I think the thing that I tell my teams all the time is I really pride my teams in being tough physical teams. And the results are going to be what they are. Some games are going to win, some games are going to lose. But if you go in there with tough physical mentality, that's really the mindset I want the team in. And as you probably saw, as you saw on Saturday, we run a pretty old school offense.
Yeah, double tight, double wing.
Yeah, we,
Yeah,
we we do the
absolutely.
double tight double wing. We tried to do some spread at the beginning of the year. It wasn't working out. My background is in the double tight double wing. Learned that at Stoneham, and fell in love with it. It's an incredible offense. It's always fun. The kids can see for the first time is that you can put 10 in the box and we can still run it.
Yeah.
You can still run it under those circumstances. And so I think really the focus is if you can focus on the toughness aspect, the offense and the defense can kind of take care of themselves. With just a little bit of skill work, but if you don't have that baseline of toughness, it's going to be tough to do either one of those.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes perfect sense. And, like I said, like, yeah, physicality in football is everything and making your team. I mean, Watertown was a very good team that year. St. Mary's is a very good team there. And these head coaches are, my running back is banged up. My running back is dinged up. Like they're sore. Like, there's nothing getting confidence like that when you see these kids running for a couple hundred yards every single week and they go against you defensively. And, they score 3 touchdowns on you, but they're scoring 4, 5, 6 touchdowns on everybody else. So, to get those compliments. You lost some close games, but for sure, to hear how tough we were becoming was really important to me. And before we jump into the second part of our conversation, I just want to give a shout out to Anthony Buccieri. He's one of the best personal trainers in the state of Massachusetts, in my opinion. Built by Buccieri, 10T Rossell Road in Woburn, Mass. His facility is unbelievable. It's got that turf inside. He's got a lot of different machinery going on there, a lot of different free weights. He has that open shed concept, which is really cool for outdoor workouts. His social media is completely popping all the time. He does classes, individual training sessions, and boot camps, and his music's king. I mean, his social media, the music that he's playing, and what the atmosphere that he has there, people are just going crazy. As you know, kids love listening to music and what gets them amped up before games. And I've recommended even a few friends to him. Easy guy to talk to, super approachable, and an absolute specimen of a human being, like an absolute specimen. But his social media is at Anthony Buccieri _CPT. So check him out. Tell him Beyond Podcast sent you, and I'm telling you, you will not regret it. So back to our conversation, coach. So obviously we talked a little bit about building a staff, and that's something that's really important. One thing that I used to love, and it's still a guilty pleasure of mine, there's still coaches, I won't name them, but that send me their film, and I most certainly take a look at things on a defensive side, and I give them my suggestion of what I think, especially when you see offenses like yourselves or wing T or things that have a lot of pulling and a lot of motion going on, to be able to stay disciplined across the line of scrimmage. Film study. Talk about just film. I mean, huddles change everything. They can break down film for you. They can send you all that stuff. I'm old school. I like finding that stuff myself and tracking it myself so I understand a flow of a game, play call, and different things that I'm thinking of. But talk about film study as a whole and how much it's changed, your programs, even from just Matignon to Lexington to even now in Georgetown, how much it's helped you as a coach.
Yeah, I mean, I tell my coaches all the time, and is I like coding my film. I don't use Huddle Assist. I don't, it's not really something I
Yeah.
engage with. And really, what it comes down to is, if you want to learn football, there's no other way than just sitting down, analyzing the film, going through all the steps, looking at a play. Was it 9, 10, 11 times? You're looking at it for the down and distance. You're looking at it for what formation, what personnel. You're looking at it for uh, what the motions are going to be and what the play is actually. And as you watch it over and over and over, you pick up things each time. And I think I always tell my coaches is that if you really want to learn, get in and code the film. That's the way you learn. It's how I learned, and it's something for I'm going on, I think it was something like 10, 11 years now. It's pretty much just it's what I know I'm doing on Saturday and Sunday. It's just part of what I do. It's become a just what I it's just what I expect every week to do. But it's also developed what I can see in the games because now I'm coming up with game plans that are very specific that earlier in my career I don't know if I could have done purely because it's just studying it and and really emphasizing that to the kids as well because what it comes down to is we can draw up any play we want on the whiteboard and it's going to look pretty. It's about what do the kids know, because if they don't know the offense, then it's not going to matter what you draw up. If they don't know what the defensive read structure is, then it doesn't matter what you're installing. It could be the perfect stuff that the Patriots could run. But if the kids don't understand it, then it doesn't matter. So having them have a culture of watching film, accountability to film, making sure they're all signed in because we all know how frustrating it is when you see 3 weeks into the season it says invite sent. It's frustrating, and you can see the engagement's not there. And thankfully, that's something that our kids have really engaged with. Is getting to see kids watching 40, 50, 80 minutes of film in a week. It's small steps. It's
Mhm.
small steps, but it's getting them to really engage in what they're doing, watch the film of the game they played, watch the opponents, quiz them a little bit on it. I can go up and say, what's the DN's number? And if
Mhm.
they can't tell me, that's a problem. It means they didn't watch the film. We can hide some things in, we sometimes we hide some things in the film, see who tells me about it. There's ways that we can add some things in there to make sure they're all watching it and watching it really, not just, putting it on repeat and going to bed. There's things we can do, and we try to install processes to make them understand the importance of this film study. And, we're just in a position right now of keeping to the grind, making sure we're doing the right things day in and day out. And hopefully we're going to see some improvement in the defensive play and get some wins on the board this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, to me, film study was just such an important thing. When we came in, it was you knew their best plays, what they were going to run, the formations that they went to, their pass to run ratio. And it's great to be able to have that to rewind. And then once I got better at it, like sending clips to individual kids, and then I would make sure I reached out to them and say, hey, I sent you X, Y, and Z. Check these out. This is what I'm talking about when they're in trips. They do this, that, whatever. So, it's a great technology to have. It's better than the old days of chasing film or meeting somebody halfway to exchange a CD or even a VHS for some programs. So, it's definitely come a long way. And to me, has really kind of changed the high school game. I mean, we're seeing it become such a pass happy at the pro and college level. And over the last 10 years, the amount of QB camps that are out there, the amount of spread offensive gurus that are out there, and it's like in basketball, scoring a lot of points is sexy, scoring a lot of points in football is sexy. Offense is king. So, being able to see teams throw the ball and make reads and read a triangle or read a zone defense, or this is what we're going to throw against this because this is what like. It's interesting, and being a defensive guy, keeping up with that stuff is hard because RPOs and everything else. So there's just so many ways that the high school offense has changed, and to me, film study, having the ability to do that, has been such a quicker, that's why you're seeing a lot of true freshmen start at quarterback. That's why you're seeing a lot of rookies in the NFL that can come in and run a program and run a team and, be a professional football player. It's because they're built to do it at such a young age. So real cool stuff. But Last thing I want to ask you before we jump into our fun segment, which is our 2 minute drill, is advice to young coaches out there. I mean, you've been a guy who've coached a lot of different programs. You've built staff, you built them off of certain concepts or certain philosophies. What would be your advice to a young guy starting out, looking to get into a job and say, hey, this is what you should know jumping in as a football coach?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that no job is too good for you. No job, no, you're not too good for any job. That's probably what I should say. Is that my first few years, it wasn't always doing the fun stuff. It was having to, if we're doing double sessions, someone needs to go drive and get the coach's food. That's the young guy on staff. Be okay with that. Don't have pride about it. Just like any other, it's literally just like any other sport that you've been a part of. It's seniority matters. And I'm not arguing that it shouldn't. It's that someone needs to do it. Be willing to be that person that does it. That's what I did my first year, and I think that had a little big effect on my ability to grow. Is that there was no job that I was too important for. There was no job that I was too good or too smart for. My job was to do whatever needs to get done to help, at that point to help Coach Amita run the program, and whatever that needed to be, it needed to be. If it was I need to run a 5 a.m. lift and a 6 p.m. lift, so be it. I'll do it. And it's not to, and the only expectation that you should have for what you get back is that experience. It's really what it comes down to is you need to learn the ins and outs. You need to learn, you need to know what, I know Bob Amita always says you don't know what you don't know. And it's true. And the only way to find out is to just do it. And you need to
Right.
do every aspect you possibly can. And and as you do that, the coaches will trust you more. And then they'll give you more responsibilities and you're gonna have less of that work that you don't like and more of the stuff that you do like. And it's just about be willing to grow, be willing to put in the hours. Don't be shocked if you have a week in the summer that you're working football for 30, 40 hours in the week. Don't be shocked about it. Don't be shocked when you get a text message on a Friday afternoon saying, hey, staff meeting at 6 a.m. on Sunday. And don't be complaining. Don't be worried about it. It's part of growing and part of learning is that
Yeah.
you need to put this work in if you want to be successful. And, I got lucky where I've worked for in my opinion, some of the best coaches in the state, with Coach Q and Coach Almeida. And, they showed me how to do it the right way. But if I wasn't willing to take that teaching, if I wasn't willing to see the effort that they put in and replicate that in my own way, I wouldn't, I would never have gotten to have the opportunities that I've had in these different schools.
Yeah.
It's so much about I got lucky, and I know I got lucky where it's not everyone that gets to have their first person to teach them how to be a coach be Bob Almeida from Stoneham. It's an honor that I got to have, but it's also important to not just be able to say I was on the staff, but put work in and make sure that you're learning from him because he's showing you how to do it the right way. Coach Q showed how to do it the right way. And it's not always going to be sitting down and explaining it to you. Sometimes you just got to watch. And sometimes you just got to observe and understand what they're trying to do. And if you have questions, ask them. And if you have questions, figuring out why are you handling a situation like this, there might be deeper reasons. And you can, and most coaches, especially if you're on staff, are going to tell you.
Right.
And I think one of the things that I've seen in younger assistants sometimes is they're too quiet. They're either too quiet about asking questions, or really the big one is they don't want. Some of them don't want to put that extra work in, and
Right.
that's
Well,
really
they already like we know it all. Yeah, we already know this. I already know this. I mean, I've talked to coaches. I had a defensive back coach. I won't say his name because you'd be really sensitive about it. But every time I try to get him to work on something or be like, we got to work on this or work on that, 2 minutes, like, we did it, coach. What do we, it's like, no, you got to work at it every day. You got to work at it consistently. You can't just do it 5 times and say that you're done with it. Like there's a lot of way to progress drills, a lot of way to do it. Like not questioning your knowledge. The kids need reps. They need more reps, 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 like anything else. So I totally agree with you. I mean, learn, be a sponge, absorb everything, and like you said, if you're serious about being a head coach, no job is too big for you because you need to know the ins and outs of all the little things that you wouldn't even think about. And if you just want to kind of jump and go into the throne, you'll learn real quick that wait, I'm not just coaching this on the field. I got to deal with the boosters and deal with the parent group and deal with the kids, maybe behavior outside of school, or so and so's going through something real personal, or you have a coach that's something's going on, they're going to miss some time. Like there's so many aspects of things that you have to worry about on top of just, even as far as like the game goes, making sure that all the equipment gets there, making sure that you have your game balls, like thinking about the wind, thinking about the weather. Like there's a lot that you getting towels, getting bags if it's raining. Like there's so many things you have to do. So
Yep. I do, I do,
absolutely.
I do have a fun story about that. So I remember when I was at Matignon, we had a big game. I think we were playing Hull, and we had pretty high expectations for the game. I think we kind of expected that we'd be able to, run it down the middle pretty well on them. And I remember coming out for warm-ups. We have specials coming out, and all of a sudden, my captain comes out. Coach, I forgot my pants at the school. Now, thankfully, the field we played at, Russell Field, was only a few hundred, maybe quarter of a mile from Matignon. So I had to send one of my young assistants to go get his pants. But that's the kind of stuff that
You got
you
to
see
do it.
sometimes. You
Yeah.
see it, and it's hard to plan for a kid not wearing his pants to the game. Um, he I don't know why. I still don't know why he didn't, but that's one of those things. I guess it goes towards that last answer is sometimes I'm going to ask a guy to drive back and get the pants,
Right.
and to my coach's credit, just said, okay, what locker number, and let's go. And,
Yeah.
but that tells me a lot about that coach when they're willing to do that. Because, it's not I got to go drive and get that. It's how can
Okay,
I
coach,
help
I
this
got it.
team right now?
Right.
And that
Exactly. I
tells me
got it.
all I need to know.
When I came into Arlington Catholic, I had played there. So my first year, I tell the story. I mean, I'm very friendly with this coach. He still coaches. He denies it, but it happened. It totally happened. And yeah, so we're scrimmage in Malden, and that was our big scrimmage, like our first scrimmage, that Saturday scrimmage that you would have, and and I'm this young freshman coach. It's like I've been on the scene with varsity since Monday, so I'm 23 years old. I'm showing up to the first scrimmage, like bouncing more than the kids are, super excited, and I'm willing to do anything. I'm the freshman coach. The defensive running, I'm trying to learn. I'm trying, and it was a coach I was very familiar with, and he calls me over. He's like, coach, I need you. I need you. I'm like, great. Like I come over. I'm like, what do you need, coach? You want me to go up in the booth? You want me to watch the D-backs? Like, what do you want me to do? He's like, my wife's running a little late and my two kids are playing over here. Do you mind just kind of keeping an eye on them for the next 15 to 20 minutes until my wife comes? And that was like my introduction into it. And I remember being like so upset about it. But at the end, like it was like, you know what? My dad would say to me, "You're the low person on the totem pole. These are the things you got to do, Anthony." And they're right. Like those are the things you do because you show your loyalty, you show your value, you show that okay, cool, I'll do this for you if that's what's best for the team right now. And so no job is too small. I totally agree with your coach. And with that being said, we're going to jump into our Chini's 2 minute drill. I don't know if you've ever been to Chini's before. It's outside the garden. It's at 252 French Street. They sell like mini arancini balls, like in like a 6 pack. It's pretty funny. Pizza's phenomenal. Calzones, the whole nine. Joe has been like our guy since day one when we started this. So we named our 2 minute drill after him. But this segment is rapid fire, quick 1 to 2 word answer questions. I throw a red flag if I want to review it, but it's all out of good fun, and you can explain anything whenever you want to. We're pretty loyal and we're pretty nice here. So let me start the clock, and here we go. Most important defensive position in your defense.
Outside linebacker,
Okay. Fourth and goal from the 3. What are you running?
wedge,
Okay. Outside of the quarterback, what's the most important position in your offense?
guard,
Song that still gets juiced up.
Africa by Toto.
Okay. I like that. I've never heard that one. That's a real good one.
I'm sure if Coach Q watches, he will probably get very angry because I have blasted that in the Belmont coach's office more than enough times.
um, one word to describe your coaching style.
Passionate.
Okay, that is I know what that answer means, and I love it. I've had plenty of coaches say it. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most, how hard do you think you can condition your kids throughout the week of practice?
I'd say a solid 8.
Okay, so pretty good conditioning, making sure it's real important. I agree. Listen, you can condition them during practice, and hopefully you don't have to condition them as hard at the end. But conditioning is important, especially late in games when you need
I
it.
I will put a caveat on that is I think the conditioning should be happening throughout the practice. So the effort should be is such that we don't need to spend time too much at the end. You should be tired just because of practice to begin with.
Yeah. And sometimes I would run like 2 minute sprints of like 10-yard dashes, 20-yard dashes, quick 10-yard shuttle runs, and then get into 2 minute offense. Like, and that was it. Like, we're conditioning. Okay, now we're going to play tired. We're going to learn how it's hard to play tired. And we're going to see that we need to be in good shape when things are on the line like that. So, yeah, that was a big thing that I did. My offense was not happy about it. But as the year went on, we got better and we were a lot tougher and we were meaner and when we got the tough yards when we needed them. So, it works. How much time do you take away between football and maybe jumping into baseball?
Uh, I would say very little. Maybe 2 weeks.
Okay. Okay. That's good. You got to take some time. It doesn't matter if it's small, you got to take some time, in my opinion. Last question. What do you think the Patriots' final record's going to be this year?
Well, that would depend on a few things. I'd say Mac Jones, depending on how long that injury is, I'm maybe I'd say between 6 and 8 wins.
Okay, okay, and that's kind of where I see it. A 500 team that maybe plays tougher towards the end of the year. It gives you something to tease you for the following year. Hopefully, that's the case, but we'll see. I think a lot of that does depend on that. So, Coach, you survived the 2 minute drill, and I just want to thank you for coming on today. As I said, I heard high praise about you before you to come on here, just to hear how loyal you are to some of the guys that you coach with, and giving them shout outs. During a time that you're on a podcast and how important they impacted you, I think is really important. Shows a lot of class, and most importantly, you took over a very young program. You've played some real tough opponents. I think you got another tough opponent in the Shoba Tech. Is that who you guys have? Danny Kelly, former guest on this show. I know on a personal level, and he's got it. He's got it rolling over there. So I know they're going to get your fastball for sure, and a game that I definitely will be keeping my eye on in the paper on Friday.
Yeah, Danny does a great job. I had worked with him a little bit over the summer when I was trying to figure out exactly what path I was going to take this year, and I have great respect for Danny and everything he's doing over at Neshoba Tech, and we're expecting it to be a battle, and we're gonna just come in and we have a game plan that we just hope to execute to the best of our ability and see where it takes us.
Yeah, absolutely. So excited to keep an eye on you guys and excited to keep an eye on your program as the year goes on. And, as I said, thanks for coming on the show today. So from Beyond Podcast, I'm your host, Anthony Petrellis, Mike Hill, Georgetown Football. Till next time, guys.